So, dun sa number 5, ma'am, which is secant squared x plus cosecant squared x is equal to secant squared x times cosecant squared x. So, bago natin isolve yan, ma'am, which is ito yung solution, ma'am. Alamin muna natin paano nakuha yung mga identities. Sulat muna natin itong mga to para may basis tayo. So, yung sin x is a over c. Yung cosine x is b over c. Yung tangent x is a over b. And then cosecant x is c over a. Kabaliktaran ng sin, ma'am. C over a. And then secant x is c over b. Kabaliktaran ng cosine, which is bc. Yung secant is cb. Cotangent x is b over a. Kabaliktaran ng tangent ab. Now, yung cosecant x na ca, pwede ko din isulat ng a over a, 1 over ac. Kasi pag kinuha mo yung reciprocal, halimbawa, 1 over ac, pag kinuha ko yung reciprocal ng 1 over ac, this will give me 1 times c over a. So, 1 times c over a is c over a, which is yung c over a ng cosecant. So, this fraction is equal to c over a, which is cosecant. So, yung c over a, pwede kong i-write as 1 over ac. And then, yung ac is yung sine. AC is sine. So, AC, pwede kong equate sa sine x. So, cosecant x is equal to 1 over sine x. Ganyan, ma'am. Pag kinuha mo yung reciprocal ng sine, nakukuha mo yung cosecant. Next is, yung secant, pwede kong i-write as BC, which is 1 over cosine x. Kunin mo lang yung reciprocal nito, ma'am. And then, makukuha mo na yung secant. Reciprocal ng cosine, makukuha mo yung secant. And then, sa may cotangent, 1 over AB. So, pag kinuha mo yung reciprocal niyan, babalik ka dito sa BA. So, which means, yung cotangent is equal to 1 over tangent x. So, ibig sabihin, ma'am, yung cosecant x equal sa 1 over sin x. Yung secant x is equal to 1 over cosine x. Yung cotangent x is equal to 1 over tangent x. So, yan yung mga identities. This one, tsaka this one. Equal yung mga yan, no? Cosecant x equals 1 over sin x. Next, lagyan natin ng mga exponent. So, sin squared x is equal to a squared over c squared. Cosine squared x is equal to b squared over c squared. Tangent squared x is equal to a squared over b squared. Next, cosecant x. Cosecant squared x is equal to c squared over a squared. So, nilalagyan lang natin ng mga exponent, ma'am. So, yung cosecant squared, lalagyan mo lang ng exponent, yung c at saka yung a. And then, yung equivalent na reciprocal niya will be 1 over a squared over c squared. Which is, yung a squared over c squared is equal to sin squared x. Yan. Tama? A squared over c squared is equal to sin squared x. Next, secant squared x is equal to c squared b squared. And then 1 over b squared over c squared So, b squared over c squared is cosine squared x. This one. This one. And then, cotangent squared x is equal to b squared over a squared 1 over a squared over b squared is 1 over tangent squared x. Tangent squared a squared over b squared is tangent squared x, which is nakalagay dito. Next, so yung cosecant squared x is equal to 1 over sine x squared. Secant squared x is equal to 1 over cosine squared x. Cotangent squared x is equal to 1 over tangent x squared. Pero yung gagamitin lang natin dito ma'am itong dalawa mamaya. Itong dalawang identity. Now, doon tayo sa Pythagorean theorem, yung a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Yung Pythagorean theorem kasi gagamitin din natin yung mamaya sa solution. So, what if yung all terms na to i-divide ko sa c squared? A squared over c squared, b squared over c squared, c squared over c squared. So basically, yung ibang mga identities ma'am nang galing sila sa Pythagorean theorem, makakapag-construct ka ng multiple identities gamit yung Pythagorean theorem. So yung Pythagorean theorem na a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, that is yung Pythagorean theorem. Tapos ang ginawa ko, dinivide ko yung tatlong terms na yun sa c squared. Now, if you could notice, yung a squared over c squared is yung sine squared. So, ito, pwede kong palitan ng sine squared x plus yung b squared over c squared is cosine squared x. So, this is cosine squared x. And then c squared divided by c squared, ika-cancel mo lang yan. So, this is 1. So, that is another identity. So, gagamitin din natin yan mamaya. So, balik tayo dito sa may given. So, ang gagawin natin, ipoprove natin na yung secant squared x plus cosecant squared x is equal to secant squared x times cosecant squared x. So, yung solution, kunin natin to. Dapat ito mo convert natin ng ganito. So, secant squared x plus cosecant squared x. So, lahat ng mga identities na ito ma'am gagamitin natin. So, yung secant squared x, which is this one, equivalent siya sa 1 over cosine squared x. So, itong secant squared x, equivalent sa 1 over cosine x. 1 over cosine squared x. So, ito, which is this one, papalitan ko nito. So, ito magiging 1 over cosine squared x plus yung cosecant squared x, which is this one, equivalent sa 1 over sine squared x. 1 over sine squared x. Kasi write lang natin yung right side. Next, ito yung part na medyo komplikado. Kasi ang gagawin natin ngayon ma'am, yung una ko naisip is kunin yung LCD. Pero ganito na lang yung gawin mo ma'am. Kunin mo to, tapos i-multiply mo siya sa numerator tsaka denominator ng first term. So magiging cosine squared, tapos sine squared x, tapos sine squared x. Yan. So pag Pag sinimplify mo yan, equal yan sa 1 ma'am. So, wala ka pa din actually dinadagdag o ginagawang iba. So, ganito lang gagawin mo ma'am. Plus pala yan. Kung ano yung denominator dito sa may second term, ang gagawin mo, gawin mo siyang dalawa. I-multiply mo siya sa may numerator ng first term tsaka doon sa may denominator niya. And then dito sa kabila, i-write mo ulit yung sin squared x. And then dito naman, yung denominator dito sa una, lagay mo siya dito sa numerator tsaka i-multiply mo sa numerator tsaka denominator. So, ito naman yung dodoublehin mo, cosine squared x. Ganyan. So, kasi pag inisip mo pa yung LCD, baka maging komplikado. So, ganyan na lang muna. So, yung denominator dito, ginawa kong dalawa, tapos minultiply ko dito sa first term. And then, yung denominator ng first term, dinoble ko. Minultiply ko dito sa may numerator tsaka denominator ng second term. Ito yung first term natin, ito yung second term. Yan. So, itong dalawa nang galing dito. Tapos, itong dalawa nang galing doon. So, kung ano man yung nandun sa denominator, ma'am, yun ang ilalagay mo dito. Kung ano man yung nandito sa may denominator nito, yun ang ilalagay mo dito. Magkamukha lang dapat. Next, simplify natin. 1 times sin squared x is sin squared x over, well, copy mo lang nasa ilalim. Cosine squared x times squared x plus 1 times cosine squared is cosine squared x, and then copyahin mo lang nasa ilalim. Now, itong dalawang nasa denominator natin, ma'am, kahit na dito nauna yung cosine, dito nauna yung sine, parehas lang sila. Kasi minumultiply mo lang din naman. Yung tinatawag nilang cumulative property. Pwede mong pagpalitin yan. For as long as minumultiply mo silang dalawa, kahit magkapalit sila ng lugar. Katulad nito, dito nauna yung cosine, dito nauna yung sine. Kahit magkapalit sila, basta minumultiply, parehas lang sila ng value. Secant squared x times cosecant squared x. Next. So, since magkamukha na yung denominator nila, parehas na may cosine squared tsaka sin x squared, pwede mo nang pag-isahin. Pwede mo nang gawing cosine squared x times sin squared x. Kung titignan mo, ma'am, yung denominator mo dito tsaka denominator mo dito, parehas na may cosine squared x at saka sin x squared, sin squared x. Parehas. So, pwede mo nang pag-isahin. So, yun nandito sa ibabaw, pwede mo na din pagsamahin. Or, para malaman natin paano nakuha yan, i-divide mo lang to dito times sin squared x. Cosine squared x times sin squared x divided by this. Makakancel lang yung parehas na cosine, makakancel lang yung parehas na sine. Tapos i-multiply mo yun sa sine. Ito pa din yung makukuha. And then, kung titignan mo, ma'am, di ba parehas na sila ng denominator, pwede mo na lang pag-isahin. Tapos pwede mo na i-write yun nasa taas dito. So, nasa isang fraction form na lang sila. Next, sin squared x plus cosine squared x. Ito, nakita mo na to before. Which is this one. Nakuha mo sa Pythagorean theorem. Sin squared x plus cosine squared x is this one. Sin squared x plus cosine x squared, which is equal to 1. Ibig sabihin ito, pwede kong palitan ng 1. So, ito, papalitan ko ng 1. So, 1 over, kokopyahin ko yung denominator ngayon. So, ito, equivalent sa 1. So, papalitan ko na siya ng 1. And then, kokopyahin ko yung nasa may denominator. Cosine squared x sine squared x is equal to secant squared x times cosecant squared x. Next. Yan. Next, anong susunod? So, yung cosine squared x times sine x squared, pwede ko na ulit i-factor. Pwede ko siyang paghiwalayin. Pwede kong gawing 1 cosine squared x times 1 sine squared x. Yan. Itong part na ito, ma'am, kinokopya ko lang all throughout. Now, pwede ko siyang i-factor kasi 1 times 1 is 1 cosine squared x times sine squared x is ito pa din. So, pwede ko silang paghiwalayin. Next, 1 over cosine squared x, parang nakita mo na to. Ano equivalent value niyan? 1 over cosine squared x is this one, which is equivalent to secant squared x. So, ito, pwede kong palitan nun. So, magiging secant squared x times yung 1 over sine squared, nakita mo na din yan. This is this one, which is equivalent to cosecant squared x. So, ito, pwede kong palitan nun. Squared. Now, this is the final answer natin. Magkamukha na sila o equal na sila. So, I suggest, ma'am, na i-memorize mo yan to kung paano na construct yung mga identities tsaka to sa Pythagorean theorem. Hindi lang ito yung nabubuo, ma'am, kasi dito ang ginamit ko letter C, yung pinang-divide ko. Pero what if A ang gamitin ko? Ano yung mga mako-construct kong mga functions? Iba-iba din. So, i-memorize mo lang yung a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. Makakabuo ka ng ganito, ma'am. Tapos, yung mga ratios, sa mga trigonometric ratios. Tapos, lagyan mo lang ng exponent, ganyan. Pag na-construct mo to, tsaka ito mo, madali na lang to. At tsaka, itong part na to, ma'am, itong ginawa ko na to, madalas mong gagamitin to niyan sa mga solutions. Kung paano ko nilagay itong mga to. Tapos yan. Hanap ka lang ng mga equivalent values ng mga yan, ma'am. Ito, nakuha ko yung equivalent value niya dun, which is equal to 1. Kaya naging 1 na lang yun. Naging 1 na lang yun.